several players. They've sent several players out on loan, and a lot of these players are young kids who have a lot of things that they could have offered to the club. And I'm thinking about Matteo Guendouzi as well. The way the situation with him and Arteta was not given enough time to just really be played out and talked through. Guendouzi is a very hard-headed young man, and he's very similar to Arteta in a way, in that he's very strong-willed and will not back down. Ateta is the same, and I think Ateta is trying so hard sometimes that I think he comes across as a dictator, because he seems to think whatever he perceives to be the way forward needs to be the way forward. And so this is where I'm questioning the structure around him, because he's a guy who's never managed a team, much less a club. And yet at Arsenal, he's being asked to manage a club. And he seemingly has to stand up there by himself and answer. And rightfully he's expected to answer for a lot of the decisions and things that are not making sense at all. However, like the mismanagement of some of these players, he has to take a responsibility for that. Saliba and Guendouzi are happy playing their football in France right now. And I know the French league is not the Premier League, but I also know that those players would do better than some of what I'm seeing. Don't tell me the performances we've seen from Callum Chambers several times this, even as a right back, I think Saliba would do better than Callum Chambers at this point. Pablo Mari has been in the team and then got dropped. Rob Holding, I think on most days will do as well as maybe and as Saliba maybe, but like I think Saliba long term is a better player than all three, and they're all at Arsenal. And then to add, salt to this wound, Kolasinac was started at Manchester City, and the guy should not have been anywhere near the field. I know he was not the worst defender. He was not Arsenal's worst player on that day. However, I think the fact that we needed him so early in the season speaks to the fact that Arsenal were very hasty in getting rid of Saliba and getting rid of the kid who's at Stuttgart, Mavropanos, the Greek kid, Dinos Mavropanos. Those two players are quite capable of playing a back three system or whatever other system, but we try to play a back three that had Chambers, Holding, who are both center backs, and Kolasinac on Sunday or Saturday against Man City. It looked horrible. And I know that, that's not Arteta's first choice, but the fact that you have a couple of unavailable center backs, Gabriel and Ben White, and then you are having to dip into Kolasinac because you can't even trust Murray, who's also one of our signings. And then the fact that Ainsley is having to basically grovel for minutes, and we're starting Cedric at right back and Chambers, both of whom he's a better player than. Maybe Ainsley won it out and maybe his head is not right. And so I understand that. But I think there's a problem there for Arsenal when it comes to the way they're managing these young players, man. Joe Willock was another casualty of mismanagement of the whole overall squad. But like the fact that he had to be sold, and I'm not, trying to relitigate whether he should have been sold or not, but I do think had it not been for a bloated squad, Joe Willock is still an Arsenal player, probably doing better than some of the performances we will see this year from some of the midfielders who remain at the club. The club is keeping some midfielders who I think are lesser players than Joe Willock. And so because of that, for me, I think even though 225, depending on who you listen to. £1 million for Joe Willock is a decent deal. I think he's a player for me athletically built for the Premier League. Um, he's a player who also understands the cultural fabric of the club. He is a midfielder who can score goals. We don't have many of those, or I don't think we have any actually. Um, so I just think part of the problem there is the fact that Joe Willock, again, was a young player who's grown up at the club, and I think we mismanage these kids because some of them have been there since the academy. Whether Edin Ketia, I'm not even talking about him yet. I'm not even saying these kids are great players. I just feel like they've been teased and kept on the fringes for so long. Some of them are very comfortable with it. Reece Nelson, um, but even has been refusing to sign a contract. And this morning, it turns out he's going to go out to Feyenoord um, in the Dutch league. I'm sad for these kids because a lot of them are trusting the club to manage their futures. And then these are just the kids on the fringes, right? Balogun committed to us. He's now in the squad. Smith Rowe, Saka, Martin Odegaard just signed. Aaron Ramsdale just signed. We have the Lokonga. I mean, the list goes on. Martinelli, Tavares. We have a lot of young kids who, are trusting the club with their futures. So I think it's incumbent upon the club to do right by these kids, man, and then the fans too. Arsenal fans have been the butt of so many different jokes, if you ask me. And sometimes, we ask for it, and sometimes I would say, all you got to do is watch, Arsenal fan TV. Even though there's some really good opinions on that show too, there's a lot of people there who just, who react, and I guess we all feel some of the things they say sometimes because it's right after the game. After an Arsenal game, it's hard not to feel some of the things you hear on AFTV. And so I guess, I don't even want to talk trash about them, but just wanted to say, like, sometimes we do invite the laughter and the memeing and all of that stuff. So I get it. However, I do want to say, in this last week, Arsenal fans have given me a lot of hope in terms of, like, the ones who go to the games. They've given me a lot of hope as to, like, what's the state of the club and how things are going for the club. As far as, like, the fan base goes, like where the fan base stands, because a lot of the time, you listen to these British shows, 606, or you watch Match of the Day, or like, there's a lot of inflammatory language that gets used. And so it was really, really cool to see fans. And know there was a focus in the US and on the broadcasts, there was a focus on the fans who were leaving around the time Xhaka got sent off, which was like 10 or so minutes before halftime, and people were leaving. And I don't blame them for that too, because at that point it's curtains. The game is over. You're playing against Man City. You are looking hopeless with 11 men, and then one of the guys who's supposedly going to lead on the field in this new regime that we're trying to build towards, that commits, fouls only like he can commit. So I understand, but the point I'm trying to make here is the fans stood by the team. They sang. They stayed after full time. I don't know if there were any boos. I couldn't hear them, but people were singing and supporting the team. And a few days before, Aaron Ramsdale, a new signing for Arsenal, who had also been, not well received on the online spaces by Arsenal fans. I'm not saying universally Arsenal fans were against that signing, but the loud voice was definitely a dissenting voice, a voice that was dissatisfied with the move. And the fans, who were at the game, they really got behind the guy. He felt the love. He even thanked them in his post-match interview, on the club's website. He was He was very, happy, for the experience. Of course, a goalkeeper keeping clean sheet and the team wins 6-0 on debut, you're going to be happy. But I think he was aware. He was aware what the fans did for him and the team on the day. So this was a good week for Arsenal fans. So I want to say that as an Arsenal fan, I'm very proud to, you know, to have seen that, and like I'm very happy. And people don't have to make me or anyone proud, but like it's really nice to see things like that. That there's still some sanity in the world of football, and that are and that football fans in general are reasonable people. That sometimes groupthink can take over, and we can sometimes, let our emotions run over. Just like I ranted on my last podcast, basically spoke for 30 minutes without breathing. Anyway, this part of talking about the kids and their careers and what's going on at Arsenal is something that I think is getting lost in this all this talk about Ateta this, sack him, who's next, and whatever. And one of the things that we need to think about as well is like, even if this guy goes, Arteta, right? Which I'm not one way or the other at the moment. I feel like Arsenal have gone so far down the road backing him that it would make almost very little sense. I think it would be even more infuriating to me. I don't know. Other people will probably be happy about it, but I think I would be even more infuriated if they fired him after 3 games. Because I think they should have then fired him at the end of the season. Just sack him at the end of the season, last season, bring in another coach, give that coach the support and the money that Arteta has just spent, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to talk about next year, right? Like it's like, what is the vision at Arsenal? It looks to me like the vision is to build with young players that are kind of like future proof, and that like the coach is not necessarily the person who drives everything, even though reports that I'm hearing are that Ateta is driving pretty much everything that's coming out of Arsenal, as far as like football decisions, which what is worrisome. I think he is a good guy who has his heart in the right place, but like experience wise, and the level of power you give to somebody like him, just like a couple of years ago, people were like, Wenger shouldn't have this much power, and Wenger had had so much time at the top of the game, as a coach and as a person who knows how to navigate those tricky waters of football management in England, especially, where, the media is not very, very forgiving and not very friendly. So, excuse me, I thought I ripped my shoe or something. But yeah, like, so the English media is a lot for one person to deal with, even Arsene Wenger. And I think Mikel Arteta is right now feeling that, and you can start seeing him getting a little bit more curt, and short in his answers, when he has to sit for press conferences. And I'm wondering here, like, where is the ownership's voice on this? I know they've been silent, and it's kind of like trendy and cute to make fun of the owner, call him Silent Stan and all these things. However, like, there has to come a point, I would hope anyway, where the people at the club stand up and support their manager. And I think at the moment, it's really worrisome for me, like how silent the club has been um, during this time, and how Ateta seemingly has to front up on his own. I'm going to keep looking at things here to see. A lot of deals being made. So as I'm recording here, it looks like Daniel James. Um, yeah, Daniel James was just I just saw Daniel James on in a Leeds shirt, and it looked like Leeds had agreed a deal with Man United to sign the player, but it looks like Everton were trying some shenanigans to, I guess, hijack the move and take the player to Everton. Um, and it looks like Ozan Kabak, who spent the second half of last season at Liverpool has been signed by Norwich. And it sounds like a good deal too, because I like the kid. 14 million euros for Norwich. Okay. Anyway, coming back to what I was saying here. So like the culture within the club, there's a big leadership vacuum there, and it leaves the manager with just too much to do, if you ask me. And that can't be right. That can't be right. No matter how experienced or inexperienced the manager is, and this one happens to be inexperienced, I think it's a lot to expect somebody to do all of that by themselves. Look, when you're bringing about a change, which is what I think Arsenal were trying to do, or for a period of about 9 years or so, right? In kind of like the last 9 to 10 years of Arsene Wenger, they were trying to bring about a culture change, and part of it was about trying to bring, um, a continental structure, or just try to create a decentralized spread of power across the club, right? Like a lot of the power at the club was all around Arsene Wenger, and they rightfully, I believe, were trying to proof themselves of what is happening right now. They were trying to create a buffer that would protect them from from this kind of disaster when the day Arsene Wenger left came. He has been out of the door for 3 years now, and it feels like he left it just yesterday. The level of chaos feels like he's just left, like last week, and unannounced, just decided to leave. That's how unprepared a lot of what is happening feels for me, as I watch Arsenal. Um, I know it will get better. I've seen clubs like Leeds reach the semifinals of the Champions League, be gone for 15 years and come back. I've seen Manchester City, believe it or not, be relegated from the Premier League and come back, and stumble themselves towards decent ownership, and now look at them, right? I've seen clubs make a comeback. So, and I've seen others not make a comeback. I'm not going to be dramatic and think Arsenal won't make a comeback, but it's a matter of like what the comeback looks like. Let's not forget Brentford were a top five club in England, but it took them 74 years to come back. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal are going to go down and never come back for 74 years. I don't think that's what's going to happen here. However, it is 17 years or so since Arsenal were Premier League champions. I remember laughing at Liverpool, right, for not winning it for so long. And a club as great as Liverpool, and many would argue, even though even me as an Arsenal fan, I would not feel compelled to argue too hard against people who would say this. Some people would argue that Liverpool is a greater English club than Arsenal. And you know what? History says they are. But there was a time when I was laughing at them, saying, "Yeah, we keep talking about history, keep talking about history. Like, talk about now. Like, what is Liverpool in today's Premier League?" Well, that time is gone, right? Like Liverpool is back being Liverpool, and Arsenal is going the other direction, seemingly. And none of this, I don't know if you've noticed. Like, I haven't talked about Arsenal being number 20. I haven't talked about the games specifically. I'm talking about like just the cultural threads that I'm observing within the club. And the crazy thing is that we've been so culture obsessed, like in the last couple of years, especially under Arteta, there's been all this talk about the culture needs to change. There's a culture, excuse me, there's a culture of comfort, people who are passengers not doing what they need to do. Um, and yet, there we go. The culture seems to be the problem. And I guess if I want to be devil's advocate against my own train of thought here, is to maybe mention that it's possible that some of this, you know, hoopla and chaos that we are seeing is due to good work that's being done, and like maybe shifting people out, and some of the influential voices maybe that have been cancerous within the club, maybe those voices are being kicked out, and so then there's a little bit of hemorrhaging, and there's a little bit of bleeding out that is happening before the healing happens. I don't know how much of this is the case, but I wonder if some of it is that, right? So because of all of that, I just want to say that I'm aware that some of this might be Arsenal um, just doing a little bit of like necessary work in order for the for the for the healing to start happening, right? And it's just nasty to watch and very difficult to watch, but maybe that's what we need to be feeling and what we need to be seeing right now. It just doesn't feel like it's a strategic thing, and so it feels like all over the place and chaotic to me, and ugly when players, are taking to Instagram to address things, and also when ownership is as quiet as Arsenal's ownership has been. So it's very hard. It's very hard to see this happening, but maybe um, it needs time, because culture shift, and especially when you've had such a long culture of one guy driving it and being at the center of it all, um, it's hard to then, shift it around. But I do wonder, though, my next question is like, you know, Ateta, like needs time, or whoever the person who will be trusted needs time. The question for me is like, how much time? How much time is needed? Because I know Ateta has been there for 18 months, and this is why I hate that the club made him manager, not because I don't think he should be a manager in another club. Like if the club is well run and we are Leicester, make Ateta our manager. But the problem is the enormity of the task at Arsenal needs more. When they didn't think Arsene Wenger could do everything by himself, and that more hands needed to be on deck and more brains needed to be on the tasks that needed to be handled. This is now the time to think like that. And yet they've reverted to the thinking that, led to us having Wenger in the position he was in, who I think also he took a lot of stick and flack for the club. And I think they're doing the same thing with this new guy, younger guy who has no experience doing this before Arsenal. And that for me is one of the big, look, if you love your club, I think any of us Arsenal fans would not say no to getting the job at Arsenal, right? If Arsenal is going to employ you, any one of us, I would take the job, and I'm not even fucking qualified. Arteta is definitely qualified to take the job, but I don't know if he's qualified to wield the kind of power he's been wielding at the club, at them asking him to do that. Like I don't know many people who would refuse that kind of promotion. So I don't want to blame him for the promotion, but I do think I blame him for the way he's mismanaging things, and the way he's going about things, and his arrogance sometimes, or what I perceive to be his arrogance sometimes, to think he knows all the time. I know he says the right things, but I don't get the feeling that he asks enough questions and that he listens enough to people around him. Because I can't believe that these experienced men who've worked with more experienced managers have nothing to say to him about some of the decisions that have been made with him as the leader. I know he's the guy who has to, make the final decision, but I feel like it's too much of a one-man show. And I think it's too much for him. I don't think it's fair on him for the assistant managers to be riding on his coattails like that. And for the club, including the technical director, I think if he's riding on Arteta's coattails, then we are fucked. We are literally fucked. And how much time does he need? I don't know. But like the reason I'm asking about this time thing for me is like the club have given Ateta too much to do with this other culture stuff. Like that should be, you know, some of with the current playing stuff. I think Steve Round should be helping with that, and some of the assistant coaches should be helping with that. And Ateta should actually be leading our strategy as to like how we will be playing football. Edu and other people should be managing the culture within the club. And Ateta should be a voice within that, but like he shouldn't be the voice within that. And that's where I think for me the perversion of this whole thing is because he has too much entrust, like he's entrusted with too much. And that's why then a kid like Ainsley, I keep coming back to Ainsley because he's the story of the day, but that's why a kid like him, when he's not happy with Arteta, who's mediating that? If Arteta is the ultimate authority and then he's the manager at the same time, who helps with this? Who helps to resolve Guendouzi's situation when it arises? Who helps to resolve, like, for example, now, if Ainsley doesn't end up getting his move to Everton, Kid is another 2-year contract at Arsenal. I know he's a bit better right back than anybody we have right now. And Ateta is a very proud man. So will he be able to to sit down with Ainsley, egos aside, look, man, I might have mishandled this and this and that. Apologize. You're here now. I want to work with you. Like, how does that conversation goes? How does it go? Is it Ateta leading it? Is it somebody else sitting with Ateta and Ainsley, which I think it should be? I think Ainsley's agent, Ateta, and Ainsley, and then because Ainsley needs somebody in there who's going to be on his side, because clearly, the trust is broken, and these are the kinds of things that can happen. I'm not saying Ateta is doing everything wrong. I believe that he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but I don't think he should be doing all of that. That's my point. I know he's doing a lot behind the scenes, and probably he's happy doing a lot behind the scenes. But it also then leaves me thinking that's why we're playing shit. Because if you go to Spurs, who've just hired Nuno, a way more experienced guy, doesn't play sexy football. But there's Levy and there's other strong people there to lead the club. Nuno just gets to coach. And you know what? Within a couple of months or just under, his team plays like it's being coached. Our team plays like it's not being coached at the moment. It can get better over time. But I think this transfer window stuff and all the stuff that he's involved in, Arteta, I'm talking about here, he shouldn't be involved as much on this stuff. He should have a voice. And I don't think the club should dictate to the managers, whoever the managers are. But I will tell you now, he shouldn't have as much of a say as he has been having, because his main role is to flip and help the playing staff get a sense of direction, build a vision, and carry it out. And carry it out on the field, entertain the fans, start winning football matches. That should be his number one thing, not who's leaving and who's not, and who's coming in and what date and all these different things. We look like a team who has a distracted manager or managerless in these first 3 games. And the embarrassment of that happened in Manchester City, I'm not going to talk too much about it. But like, to me, that's why I'm talking about like the first 3 games. I've looked at Everton. You know what they're doing. You can pick their team. I know they haven't had COVID and some of the problems we've had, at least not to the degree. If they've had any COVID issues, not to the degrees that Arsenal have had. However, I think Arsenal need to do something about the fuckery that's been the way we've played. The fans deserve better. And I don't want to hear any of this stuff about like, you know, the excuses that we make as Arsenal fans, because we've become, almost like I know I jokingly say this, which is not a joke, but like I say this when I talk to friends about this. Like we as Arsenal fans have kind of like become people who have a victim mindset sometimes, in terms of like, when we want to be pro a manager or pro the club, we sometimes take the voice of a victim, like almost like the battered wife syndrome thing. When the wife starts, the wife who has an abusive husband or whatever, starts making excuses for why the husband did what they did, right? We find ways why Arsenal keep losing matches, that, in ways that are, where they don't even compete in matches. Now there are some who go extremely the other way, right? Like who just like waiting for the next loss. But I think a lot of Arsenal fans that I talk to, and a lot of Arsenal fans that I follow and listen to, we're good at like being reasonable and trying to find ways, like, oh yeah, our number one left back wasn't there, or our main striker was playing on the left. Why was this? Our right back wasn't fit. COVID. Like there's always a reason why Arsenal did not lose a game, and we're seemingly too happy to find it. And we don't do enough of an inquest and push back on some of the stuff. And I think we should push back. I think we should push back. As not in a rude way, but like I think the fans at the games, or just in general, fans need to be definitely engaging in critical analysis, and engaging in fair critique of the club. And sometimes, yes, it'll get emotional and we won't be reasonable and we can talk shit, but that's fine. But like, we have flat out run out of excuses. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. We have flat out used every excuse under the sun as to why we've been as bad as we have been, from like cultural shift, from Özil, to all these things, and all these bad players who are unhappy, who are holding us back, all these players we had to pay out, and da 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 da. All these players were here since Wenger. We have so many excuses. And then to injuries, and then to COVID, and then to, the market not fair, not being fair. Everybody's operating under the same conditions. I know not everybody has had the same executive revolving door situation happen as we have had. However, that's not on them. That's on us. Arsene Wenger leaving was not a surprise. And if it was a surprise 3 years ago, which I highly doubt, it should still not be a surprise today. We've had some time to get our house in order. I didn't expect instant success when Wenger left. I expected 5 years of suckiness. But this is just next level. And let's see how long it takes for it to change. Hopefully it changes with the people involved, like in terms of like them getting it right, because it's hard to have to buy into another new manager's talk, and all that other stuff. So I just hope that, like, whatever the situation is, that the club figure this shit out really soon, one way or another. It's gone on for too long. And yes, let's keep losing some games if we need to, but none of this other shit that we've been seeing these last few games, where we're so easy to play against, so easy to play through when teams have the ball, and we're so easy to defend against when we have the ball. We look like we're too afraid to try anything. And this is not Arsenal. This is not Arsenal. So please, Mikel, Edu, Kroenke, everybody involved at the club, find Arsenal wherever you left them. Find Arsenal and bring them back. I understand, we have to be reasonable within our expectations. I'm one of the most reasonable fans you'll find, in terms of like, If there's a plan and it's clear what the plan is, even if we're losing games, that's fine. But the way we've been losing, it looks like there is no fucking plan. And that for me is the problem. It's not the fact that we lost games. We would have lost 3 games. If we had lost 3 games like Wolves have lost 3 games, it's a different feeling. But the problem is that we really do look clueless. I know these words get thrown around a little bit too easily sometimes. Clueless, useless, novice manager. I haven't said those words a lot on purpose because I don't feel, overusing those words is going to make my case come across any stronger than just talking the way I've just talked. But it is a lot to take for fans and then ask fans to pay top dollar for tickets, for streaming games, for a lot of different things, for swag. Get your shit together, man. I'll catch y'all guys. A few times this week. I'm going to be talking a little bit about transfer deadline and a few other things on my next live streams and podcasts. You guys take care. Thanks for supporting Foot and Nose Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.